discussing today's top stories with Nick Ferrari and Gyles Brandreth.
And we're starting with news that two England players, Mason Mount and Ben Chilwell, have been asked to self-isolate after coming in close contact with Scotland's Billy Gilmour, who tested positive for coronavirus.
Well, ahead of tonight's match, we're joined by Dr Hammond, who believes that this precaution should be extended to the full England team. Good morning. Why not the full Scottish team?
Well, it should be. It should be the full Scottish team.
Why not the whole stadium? Why don't you shut it all down? Shut the fun down. Shut the world down.
You know what I say? I want the Euros to go ahead. I want the economy. We all need the happiness and the joy from the football. But all around me, I'm surrounded by parents and friends telling me that their children are being isolated at school for one case and 90 pupils are being sent home. In schools near where I live and where I'm a doctor, children yet again are isolating repeatedly and missing their education, missing their Year 6 plays, missing all of this stuff. So it feels like there's one rule for them and one rule for us. And what happens as a result of that is people are not bothering anymore. So I had lots of patients yesterday in practice say to me, no, I'm not going to get tested because I'm not going to isolate and I'm not going to go through this again.
But weren't we always going to get here? We've been saying this for a long time. There comes a point where we will say, no, not doing it anymore.
Well, I'm sad to say, unfortunately, and this is what I see in clinic, and I don't blame people, is that, unfortunately, this is what we are seeing and hearing.
And so, just because it doesn't make sense, does it really? I mean, we've got to sort of, I guess, assume that within the Euros they've got sort of things in place to keep everybody safe that maybe, possibly, we don't know about. But when you're sitting there as a viewer, as a sports fan, and you're looking at, we've seen an image of them sort of very close on the pitch. So there's that image and there's the three of them together. Apparently, it was a conversation that was had in the tunnel where they spoke. The key was that they spoke to each other for more than 25 minutes at close proximity. And that's it. That apparently the hugging on the pitch stuff is fine. It was the 25 minutes of spending time in close proximity. That does kind of beg the question then, what's going on in the changing rooms with the rest of the Scotland team? None of it makes sense, does it, Ellie?
No, none of it makes sense. So, for example, one school I know about, there was a child in an assembly where all the children are wearing masks and 35 people who were in some sort of proximity with that child are now off school yet again for 10 days. So it has to be rules for everybody, and then we will all follow it. I don't know very much about football, but I can't imagine that Gilmour was not in close contact with his entire team throughout that match,
so
not when they were outside.
So look, this is the start. I mean, obviously you're outside and you can sing outside, so you know rules all being complied with there. There you go. That's in there. So. I think the issue is here that you've got him and you've got the two England players, the ones that have been sort of singled out because they appear to have been on the telly, and there is sort of proof that they were together. This tunnel match, this tunnel conversation is irrelevant because you have all of them together in their dressing room beforehand and afterwards and coaching and all of that. So it's irrelevant to pick out three players.
Absolutely. And this is what I'm sorry to harp on about children, but it's absolutely
So if it's irrelevant,
unfair.
then why did you say at the very beginning, well, the whole England squad should be in isolation, if it's irrelevant?
Because surely they're all together in their changing rooms and they've all had close contact. Football is a close contact game. They're tackling, they're all close to each other. So how can you say just the ones who have had a conversation are next to each other? Surely they've all been together in change rooms and all sorts of things.
Nick, what are your listeners saying today?
Pretty angry, actually, Philip, and I think confusion reigns, and I put this to Matt Hancock in the first hour of my radio show. And what I think it speaks to Ellie's point, and indeed, Philip and Holly, to your points, is this: there is utter confusion. How can it be? And in fairness, Mr. Hancock said it's down to the two managers, that two English guys would appear cannot be selected. And yet, as Ellie rightly says, the Scottish guy, all the people that he'd been with on the team bus, in the hotel, breakfast meetings, strategy meetings, whatever, they're able possibly to select the rest of the team. And I think, for me, apart from the utter confusion, Matt Hancock saying, well, you have to look at both Public Health England and Public Health Scotland for their guidance. Well, he would say that, wouldn't he? It does speak. We are, and I cannot stress enough, you have to abide by the rules. But listening to what Ellie says, people are getting to this tipping point. And if they can't understand, and I have to say, if they look at a barbecue with the Prime Minister and others where 38 people are there, clearly in breach of COVID rules, and then you see 12,000 people dancing around in Wembley and however many it was at the cricket, then this is what's going to happen. You can't hold the line.
Gyles?
Well, consistency is what people are wanting, and all we have is confusion. Added to this weekend, because we had Nicola Sturgeon telling people from Manchester, you're not allowed to come to Scotland. We ban you from Scotland, people from Manchester. And yet we have these people in close proximity. Also, I want to know what's going on in the changing rooms. Are they still sharing the tub as they used to do in the good old days?
Well, it sounds like you do wonder what happened, like how it got in there in the first place.
It's gradually collapsing. This uniformity, we all held together last year. We held together through the beginning of this year. It's beginning to creak at the seams, and we can see that.
No, because we are human beings and we will only put up with so much
and
for so long.
And we also know how many more of us now have had double jabs.
Yep.
We're all moving in the right direction. Yeah. We're realising that autumn flu is going to come along anyway. We're just going to have to walk slowly back into the real world, and this is just some of the creeping bits at the edges that we're just going to have to face.
Well, if we look at this, Matt Hancock was on Good Morning Britain today. This is some of what he had to say.
We are taking clinical advice, for instance, on the isolation rules and whether it can be replaced with a testing regime. And we're piloting that at the moment domestically, and we're talking to countries around the world to see if there is a safe way to open up international travel, relying more on the vaccine than on quarantine restrictions.
Yeah, can families who are desperate to get away book a summer holiday in August to an amberless country if they're double jabbed?
No, we are not recommending that now. But I was asked the question, are you working on trying to get these restrictions released in the future? And the answer to that is yes, but now the rules are really clear, which is you shouldn't be travelling to an amberless country.
How far in the future? It's the summer now. I mean, you're not going to want to go anywhere in January.
You're able to go this summer to Gibraltar.
And Iceland.
Quite exciting, Gibraltar, because there, if you land in Gibraltar, you know you're landing on the main road. They close the main road. So
that's about the most interesting thing about Gibraltar.
And if you go to Iceland, which I've been to, in Reykjavik, they have these geysers. So it's like being in a gigantic hot tub, a new experience. So this is your year for Gibraltar or Iceland or the Isle of Wight.
You've managed to get hot tub in twice now to the News Review, which is impressive.
Unsponsored by hot tubs. I don't like the idea of them, actually. Getting into somebody else's water is not my scene, but I'm trying to get down with the younger people.
well, you're succeeding. Well done. What I don't get there when I'm listening to that is they're saying, oh, we're piloting these testing things now. It's June. Like, they knew that when the vaccine done. Why didn't they work this all out in January? So by the time we got to this position, Nick, they would have piloted all of that and known that we'd be OK to travel. It's so annoying. It's all so late.
I think, but for the impact of the Delta strain or the Indian strain, whichever you want to call it, it did originate from that country, we probably would be in a better place. That has spooked them. And you have to say that although the increases are slowing down, last week it was a 60% increase almost each day of last week in the number of cases. We're now down, it's still high, to around 30%. Mercifully, although one death, of course, is regrettable, and condolences to anyone touched by that, but the number of fatalities is decreasing, the number of hospitalisations is decreasing. Had it not been for the Delta strain, you know what? I think we wouldn't have to go with Gyles and see the old geezers of Reykjavik, and probably we could have gone to Mallorca, and we could have gone wherever we wanted to go, and I think that's what's been the stopping point. But you're right, Holly, should there have been more prep? Yes, there should, and probably nobody feels it more keenly than the rather embattled cabinet at the moment.
But it is an evolving situation. In fairness to them, the thing is changing as it goes along. We're having another review on Thursday, and it may be that on Thursday we're told you can go to Malta, Italy, Morocco,
The rest of the world is travelling.
It's true.
Europeans
They
are travelling.
Yep.
I think, I'm assuming this is correct. I read something about EasyJet shipping most of its fleet down to Germany because they can take the German tourists to Spain because we can't go anywhere. So the rest of Europe is travelling.
There are people in there saying in Parliament that Bojo has lost his mojo, that since COVID hit him a year ago, he's become a cautious person, not bold like the other countries are. But I think he's trying to play it as carefully as possible, because if you do let people into these countries and people can come back, then you get the thing that we had a few months ago about, oh, how come you let everybody in from India? And now we've got this Delta variant. So you can't, you know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Yep. And they're just inching their way forward as best they can.
Which I suppose, at least if there's one positive thing here, you look at British resorts, British businesses, British restaurants, hotels. My mum is from Cornwall. She was saying that you can't get a hotel room for love nor money, and if there was one hotel room, it was £1,000 a night. You know, so here we're making up a bit more money.
We certainly are, and there's still some lovely places. I was in Cornwall the other weekend in St Ives, and the main bay was full, but there are lots of little pockets. If you don't go to the obvious places, you can still find places in Cornwall. This is the time to discover the British Isles. Nowhere more beautiful to go on holiday.
Let's move on slightly here now to talk about something completely different. And this is Susanna Constantine has discussed whether it was acceptable to wear pants under pyjamas in bed. And this was on her podcast, My Wardrobe Malfunction. Now, Susanna said that she sometimes did, but Emma Barnett, who's the host of BBC Women's Hour, was resolute that knickers should always be worn under PJs. However, listeners did not agree. One wrote, never knickers under PJs or a nightdress. Fresh air, please. Gyles?
Yes, well, Phillip and I have a lot in common. Waxing is one of the things that we both share, and I imagine sleeping naked is one of the freedom at night. My wife doesn't insist on the lights being turned off before this happens, and she sort of moved the pillows like sort of bolsters in the bed, but never mind.
A wall.
That's why I'm staying on until your Swedish sex advisor arrives at 11:30. But I believe the whole point of going to bed is freedom. You don't want to be all trussed up at night.
Right.
But I agree, if you've got a sort of wobbly tummy or something, maybe wear underwear at night.
Well, you can wear... If you've got a wobbly tummy, you shouldn't be worried about eating your own bed.
No.
It's the one place you could be free.
You should, in bed, Nick, you should just wear a smile.
I want to take you're all too young, but think of Alistair Sim in A Christmas Carol with a full-length nightshirt and a little cap, and that's how I go to bed each night, completely and utterly covered at all times. All times.
I can picture that in my head now.
Holly,
that's spooky, Holly. Of all the things we've discussed, that's one of the ones I shall take to my heart.
Holly?
Yes?
You started this.
Well, I didn't start this.
Well, we've all
feel free to finish it.
Well, I would wear, like, a big T-shirt.
Would you wear pants under your pyjamas?
No pants.
No pants. No pants under your pyjamas.
No pants, please. We're British.
Stop making me say no pants on the TV.
There you go. To the good folk of the Mail Online, you're most welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.